way he did every night. Not his screams. He'd stopped being capable of that kind of raw emotion years ago, when his soul left after he murdered Emma and Thomas. These were the soul fragment screams. Sister Magdalene's fractured consciousness lodged in his chest like a burning coal, experiencing his guilt as if it were fresh, as if the children had just died, as if their blood was still warm on his hands. You killed them, the fragment shrieked inside his ribcage. You killed children, Bobbies. They trusted you. They called you Dad. And you, I know, Martin whispered to the darkness of his apartment on Sorrow Lane. I know. But the fragment didn't stop. It never stopped. Because it wasn't just experiencing his guilt. It was experiencing its own too. The fragment remembered being Sister Magdalene. Remembered kneeling in St. Cyril's Cathedral, praying for the soulless, believing she could save them. Remembered the slow transformation from holy orders to brothel management. Remembered every body she touched without compassion, every transaction dressed up as mercy, every time she'd confused function for meaning. Two guilts in one body, Martin's, the children's faces, their last moments, the rage that had consumed him, so complete he couldn't even remember the act itself, only the after, the blood, the silence, the horrible understanding that he'd done something his soul couldn't survive witnessing. Magdalene's, the cathedral, the sacred made profane, the systematic conversion of prayer into purchase, communion into commodity, the faces of the hollow ones who came seeking salvation and received only sensation, the slow, methodical betrayal of everything she'd believed in, both guilts burning in his chest simultaneously, both demanding to be felt with the same intensity, both impossible to carry. Martin stumbled to the bathroom and opened the medicine cabinet with shaking hands. Part 2, the prescription. Dr. Elias Sorrow's clinic occupied a building that shouldn't exist. It was simultaneously on Paradox Lane and 2 streets over on Regret Avenue, depending on which door you entered through. The waiting room was full of people who didn't quite fit in their own bodies. The soulless, the soul-burdened, the in-betweens like Martin, who carried pieces of other people inside them, described the symptoms. Dr. Sorrow had said during Martin's first visit, 6 months after receiving the fragment, I can't sleep, can't eat. Every moment feels like I'm drowning in guilt that isn't entirely mine. I remember things I didn't do, converting a cathedral, touching bodies mechanically, losing faith. But I also remember what I did do. The children. And both memories feel equally real, equally crushing. You're experiencing dual consciousness trauma. Dr. Sorrow explained, writing notes in a chart that changed languages every time Martin looked at it. The fragment isn't just living in you passively. It's fully conscious, fully experiencing your life through your senses, which means it's experiencing your guilt. And because it came from someone who was built to feel guilt deeply, a nun, essentially, it's processing your crimes with maximum moral separate them. No, the fragment is integrated with your nervous system. Removing it would require removing you. Dr. Sorrow had pulled out a prescription pad. But I can help you manage the experience. Emotional suppressants. They won't remove the guilt, but they'll lower the volume, make it survivable. Will they affect the fragment too? Yes, which means Magdalene's fragment will stop screaming. It'll still be conscious, still experiencing everything, but from a distance. Like watching through thick glass. Is that ethical? Martin asked. Medicating someone else's soul without their consent. Dr. Sorrow had looked at him with eyes that had seen too much of Mesmoralia's peculiar cruelties. She put her soul in you without your consent. Turnabout seems fair. Now at 3 a.m., Martin swallowed 2 white pills that tasted like forgetting. Part 3, the drowning. The medication worked through suppression. It didn't remove emotions, just pressed them down beneath a layer of pharmaceutical distance. Like being underwater, Martin thought. You could still see the surface, still know there was air up there, but you couldn't reach it. The fragment hated it. What are you doing? It demanded as the pills began to work, as the screaming guilt started to muffle. Stop. Stop. I need to feel this. The guilt is how I know I'm still human. You're not human, Martin said out loud, alone in his apartment. You're a fragment, a piece, and you're tearing me apart. Good, the fragment said. We deserve to be torn apart. You for what you did, me for what I became. I can't function like this. Can't eat, can't sleep, can't work. I'm losing weight, losing time. Yesterday, I stood in the street for 4 hours just, standing. Because the guilt was so heavy, I couldn't remember how to walk. Then carry it better, the fragment insisted. This is penance. This is what we're supposed to feel. There's no supposed to in Mesmoralia, Martin said. There's only what you can survive and what you can't. And I can't survive you at full volume. The medication settled over them both like a weighted blanket. The guilt didn't disappear. Martin could still feel it, could still access the horror of what he'd done, what Magdalene had done. But it was muffled now, manageable. He could think around it instead of drowning in it. The fragment went quiet, not silent. Martin could still feel it there, a presence in his chest, a second consciousness sharing his body, but subdued, distant. You're drowning me, it whispered, pushing me under. I'm saving us both, Martin whispered back, but he wasn't sure he believed it. Part 4, the side effects. The medication had side effects Dr. Sorrow hadn't mentioned. At the lower dosage, Martin could still access his emotions. They were just dampened, controlled. But at the higher dosage, he'd been prescribed after a particularly bad week. Something stranger happened. He started to confuse which guilt was which. He'd be walking down Merchant Street and suddenly remember converting a cathedral, except he'd never done that. That was Magdalene's memory, bleeding through the fragment. But the medication had pressed it down alongside his own guilt. swirled together, medication pressing them into a compressed strata of shared culpability. One morning, Martin woke up and couldn't remember if he'd been a murderer or a nun. He called Dr. Sorrow in a panic. "It's called identity bleed," the doctor explained. The medication suppresses the emotional content of memories, which is how your brain usually distinguishes between your experiences and the fragments. Without that emotional context, your memory centers can't tell whose past is whose. How do I fix it? Lower the dosage, but then you'll feel everything again. Or accept the blur. Learn to live with uncertainty about which sins are yours and which are inherited. Martin sat with the phone in his hand for a long time after the doctor hung up. The fragment stirred drowsily in his chest. "Do you remember?" it asked, voice muffled by medication, "what it felt like to believe in God?" "I was never religious," Martin said. I am. The fragment paused, confused. "Which one of us is speaking?" "I don't know anymore," Martin said. And they sat together in the apartment on Sorrow Lane. Two consciousnesses sharing one body. Both of them medicated into uncertainty. Both of them drowning slowly in the same pharmaceutical haze. Part 5, the meeting. There was a support group for people like Martin, those who carried pieces of other people inside them. It met every Thursday in the basement of St. Cyril's Cathedral, which Magdalene allowed because, even hollow, she understood the irony was too perfect to refuse. Martin had resisted going for months, but on the recommendation of Dr. Sorrow, and because the alternative was increasing his medication until he forgot his own name, he finally attended. The basement was full of people who didn't quite match themselves. A woman named Iris carried 3 fragments, her mother's, her daughter's, and someone she'd never met, whose soul had accidentally attached to her during a failed resurrection. She took so much medication she moved in slow motion, her words coming out delayed like international phone calls. A man named Peter carried a fragment of his murdered wife. He'd asked a soul broker to give him a piece of her so he wouldn't forget her. Now, he couldn't remember who he was without her, and the medications made both of them into strangers. A child or something that looked like a child carried an entire soul that wasn't theirs. They'd been born soulless, and a desperate parent had purchased a black market soul from the underneath. It fit wrong, like a coat meant for someone else. The child took medication that made them docile, manageable, almost human. "Welcome," said the group facilitator, a woman who introduced herself as Mother Constance. She'd been a nun before Mesmoralia, before her soul left from the sin of doubt. "We're here to support each other in carrying what we carry. Who wants to share first?" Martin raised his hand before he could stop himself. "My name is Martin. I carry a fragment of Sister Magdalene's soul. It was given to me when I was soulless, to make me feel my guilt for murdering my stepchildren. It worked. I feel everything now, my guilt, both of them constantly. I take medication to survive it, but the medication is making me forget which sins are mine. How does that feel? Mother Constance asked. Like drowning, Martin said, but slowly. So slowly I can't tell if I'm sinking or just getting used to being underwater. Iris spoke next, her words stretched like taffy. I take enough medication to stop feeling anything my fragments scream, but I can't hear them. Is that murder if I'm drowning conscious pieces of other people? It's survival, Peter said. His dead wife's fragment was visible in his eyes, a double pupil effect, like two people looking out through the same windows. We're doing what we need to do to survive carrying impossible burdens. The fragments would rather feel everything, would rather burn us alive with their emotions, but they're not the ones who have to live with the consequences. The child spoke in a voice that didn't match their age. But what if the fragments are right? What if we're supposed to burn? What if survival isn't the goal, atonement is? The room went silent. Part 6, the question of dosage. After the meeting, Martin stood outside St. Cyril's Cathedral, watching the hollow ones line up for their appointments. He recognized some of them, regulars, who came weekly to feel something, anything, even if only for an hour. Mother Constance joined him. You're wondering about dosage, she said. How did you know? Because everyone in that room wonders. Should we take enough medication to function? To feel nothing? To feel something, but not everything? There's no right answer, Martin. Only the answer you can survive. What do you take? Martin asked. Nothing. Mother Constance looked at him with her empty eyes. I'm soulless. I don't need medication because I don't feel anything. But I run the support group because I remember what it was like to feel too much. The doubt that drove my soul away, it was crushing. Unbearable. If I'd had access to medication that could have suppressed it, I would have taken it. And maybe my soul would still be here. Or maybe you'd just be medicated instead of hollow. Is there a difference? She asked gently. Martin thought about the fragment in his chest, pressed down under layers of pharmaceutical suppression. Still conscious, still experiencing everything, just quieter. Was that different from being soulless? The fragment was still there, still technically present, but so muted it might as well be absent. I don't know, Martin said. That's the most honest answer I've heard all month, Mother Constance said. Part 7, the reduction. Martin decided to lower his dosage, not eliminate it. He'd tried that once, and the combined guilt of two consciousnesses had put him in bed for 3 days, unable to move, barely able to breathe under the weight, but lower it, just enough to let some emotion through, just enough to tell the difference between his memories and Magdalene's. The fragment woke up gradually, like someone emerging from deep water. Oh God, it gasped. Oh God, we killed them. We touched them without caring. We murdered, we profaned, we... Breathe, Martin said. Just breathe. I can feel again. I can feel the guilt. both of them, yours and mine. It's so heavy, Martin. How do you carry this? One breath at a time, Martin said. One moment at a time. One dose adjustment at a time. The guilt flooded back, sharp now, clear, distinct. Martin could tell the difference between his own horror at killing Emma and Thomas and the fragment's horror at what Magdalene had done to the cathedral. They were separate again. Two distinct streams of culpability instead of one muddy river. It was worse in some ways, better in others. At least now, he knew which sins were his to carry. I'm sorry, the fragment whispered. I'm sorry I scream. I'm sorry I make it harder. I can't not feel it. This body killed children, and I'm trapped in it, experiencing that truth every second. And I betrayed everything I believed in, and I'm trapped with that too. I know, Martin said, but we're going to find a balance. A dosage that lets you feel without drowning us both. It's going to take time, trial and error. What if there is no balance? What if the only options are drowning or numbness? Then we'll choose drowning, Martin said. Because at least when we're drowning, we're still ourselves. Still conscious. Still trying. That's very poetic for a child murderer. I'm learning from a nun, Martin said. And despite everything, despite the guilt, despite the medication, despite the impossible burden of carrying someone else's soul, the fragment laughed. It was small, broken, more like a sob than genuine mirth, but it was human, and in Mesmoralia, that was worth drowning for. Part 8, the maintenance. Martin settled on a dosage that Dr. Sorrow called heroic, high enough to prevent complete breakdown, low enough to maintain distinct identity. It meant living in a constant state of managed crisis. The guilt was always there, always pressing, but not quite crushing. He could function, could work at St. Cyril's, could attend the support group, could have conversations that didn't dissolve into screaming, but he was always tired, always carrying, always one missed dose away from drowning, one extra pill away from forgetting who he was. The fragment learned to modulate its screams. It would wait until Martin was alone to express its full horror. During the day, at work, it would press itself into the background, still present, still conscious, but trying not to interfere. We're becoming a system, it observed one evening. What do you mean? A working arrangement. You carry me. I try not to overwhelm you. We both take the medication. We both survive. It's not healing, but it's maintenance. Maintenance is all we get in Mesmoralia, Martin said. Is that enough? It has to be. Every morning, Martin took his pills, white tablets that tasted like suppression and looked like small moons. Every evening, he attended to the fragment's needs, sitting quietly, letting it process the day's accumulated guilt, sharing the burden of consciousness. Every Thursday, he went to support group and compared notes with other carriers about dosages, side effects. The philosophical question, of whether drowning someone else's soul to save your own functionality was murder or mercy. Every Tuesday, he visited Magdalene and reported on the fragment's condition. "It's stable," he'd say, "medicated but stable." And Magdalene, hollow and efficient, would nod and make notes and not ask what she really wanted to ask. Does the fragment forgive me for what I did to the cathedral? Because the answer was in Martin's chest, medicated but screaming. No, never. What you did was unforgivable. What I did by doing it was unforgivable. We're both damned, and medication just makes damnation survivable. But Martin never said that out loud. Some truths were too heavy to speak, even when you were already carrying them. Epilogue: the arithmetic of drowning. In Mesmoralia, there was an arithmetic of suffering. Some people carried their own guilt. One soul, one sin, one burden. Some people carried nothing. Hollow, soulless, blessedly empty. And some, like Martin, carried multiple. His guilt plus Magdalene's fragment plus the medication that pressed both down into something barely survivable. He'd done the math once, in a moment of pharmaceutical clarity, without medication. Unbearable, approximately 10/10 suffering, non-functional, with maximum medication. Functional but identity lost, approximately 210 suffering, but at the cost of self, with current dosage. Perpetually drowning but aware, approximately 710 suffering, functional most days. The fragment had different math. Without medication, I scream but I'm real. With medication, I'm quiet but I'm dying. Current dosage, I'm drowning, but at least you're drowning with me. They'd achieved equilibrium in drowning. Both conscious, both suffering, both medicated enough to survive, but not enough to escape. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't even healing. It was just the specific form of purgatory available to those who carried pieces of other people inside them. Martin took his evening dose and felt the fragment settle, like sediment sinking in disturbed water. Tomorrow, it asked. Tomorrow we carry again, Martin said. How long? Forever, Martin said, or until one of us breaks, whichever comes first. And if I break first, then I'll carry what's left of you, Martin said. That's the deal. That's what it means to be a carrier. The fragment was quiet for a while. Then thank you. For what? For not drowning me completely. For finding the dosage that lets me stay conscious. For carrying me even though it's killing you. You're welcome, Martin said. Now sleep, or whatever it is fragments do. We dream, the fragment said. We dream of being whole again, of returning home, of feeling everything without medication because we're strong enough to hold it. Do you think that'll ever happen? No, the fragment said honestly. But dreaming is how we survive the drowning. Martin lay in bed on Sorrow Lane, a child murderer carrying a nun's fragment, both of them medicated into sustainable suffering, both of them drowning slowly in the same body. Above them, Mesmoralia's eternal twilight pressed down. Inside them, two guilts burned quietly under pharmaceutical suppression, and in the medicine cabinet, the white pills waited. Tomorrow's dose, tomorrow's drowning, tomorrow's survival. In Mesmoralia, what drowns is not the same as what dies. The drowned can still breathe, can still function, can still carry impossible burdens. They just do it underwater, where everything is muffled, where movement is slow, where the weight is distributed evenly across every part of you. Martin Creed drowns every day. The fragment drowns with him, and the medication makes the drowning survivable. Not comfortable, not resolved, just survivable. And in a city built on almosts and nearlies, survivable is a kind of victory, even if it doesn't feel like one, even if it never will.